This is Suzanne Etkin bringing to you a little ditty on permits and permissions for projects. I'll start by saying that the first part of this presentation is going to be primarily applicable to Anne Arundel County. The City of Annapolis has given us some information, although it's partial at this point, and we're working hard to make that information more robust. But I'll be talking a little bit more about that at the end of this presentation. So first of all, permits and permissions for projects. I want to introduce you through this presentation to Jean Patterson, the Code Compliance Supervisor for Anne Arundel County Department of Inspections and Permits. Jean will be with us on March 20th in class, so you can ask him any questions that you'd like to about permits and permissions on that night. But his contact information is also here. You can call him or email him anytime. He's a great guy. As we start this process, I'm going to just start by saying that this presentation is basically geared toward permits and permissions you need for small projects. So the rain garden on a residential property, things that do not need an engineer or big mechanized equipment. These are the projects that are most common for stewards to take on as capstone projects. The larger projects get a little bit more complex, so we don't deal with them in the capstone, in the certification course. So there are two sort of types of documents that I want to introduce you to. First is the standard grading plan. This is the primary document that governs permission for those smaller projects. It's a permission, not a permit. It's meant to just flag potential problems and sort of be a safeguard against any violations that you may or may not know about as a steward doing a small project, and there's no cost for the standard grading plan. Now, if your project is larger, 5,000 square feet or over, or is very complex, you may need a grading permit, and that does have a cost, and it is an actual permit. So we're not going to cover the grading permit in this presentation. We're really only going to focus on the projects that need the standard grading plan. So this can all be very complicated. So we have created a handy dandy little permitting cheat sheet. It's also on our website under Tools for Stewards, and it's really going to be your best friend. I'd like for you during this independent study to take a look at the permitting cheat sheet. It's in Basecamp, and just familiarize yourself with it. Across the top, you'll see the different documents that you need to have, and then the rows represent types of projects. And then at the end of this permitting cheat sheet, you'll see links to each of the documents you might need to access, as well as contact information for folks at the county who can answer your questions. So this is a really helpful sheet. Please familiarize yourself with it. So this permitting cheat sheet, again, covers really just those capstone project size projects. And it covers projects on community or private property, projects within the county right-of-way, and we're going to talk about that toward the end of the presentation. It covers projects in the critical area and the 100-foot buffer, and it also covers what to do with storm drain stenciling and street tree plantings. So those are two sort of special kinds of projects that sometimes stewards do. So again, this covers Anne Arundel County only. The City of Annapolis, we do have some information, but we hope that we'll have more robust information as they get it to us. So I wanted to just draw your attention to the special number, 5,000 square feet, because technically, as per county code, there is no permit or approval required for grading or clearing that disturbs less than 5,000 square feet, except if you're in the critical area buffer, the expanded buffer, the buffer modification area, or any area that is platted with a forest conservation easement. So if you're outside of those special areas and you're under 5,000 square feet, in a technical way, there's no approval necessary. So just another way of saying that is projects under 5,000 square feet outside the buffer, don't need that grading permit, that big, expensive, complicated thing that I referenced in the first slide. Projects over 5,000 square feet, you get much more complicated. You need engineering plans and permit fees, and it's very complicated. So we really do recommend that capstone projects be under 5,000 square feet of disturbance and be outside the critical area. Now, that said, we will cover what to do in the second presentation if you're in the critical area buffer. So that's no problem. However, even though approval is not required, we strongly recommend, rather, that if you're doing a project under 5,000 square feet, that you go through the standard grading plan review and approval process. Even though it's not required, technically, that you, for the types of Stewart capstone projects, we do suggest that you go through, because this process will flag any or all issues that may exist with your project. And it really covers you to make sure that you're not doing anything that would be a violation of any kind. So again, that permitting cheat sheet is going to walk you through what is included in a standard grading plan application. And on your exit assessment, I'm going to ask you, so what do you need to give with your standard grading plan application? You're going to go right to this part and copy and paste it from the permitting cheat sheet. These are the things that you need to have included with your standard grading plan application. So you can visit those links and just familiarize yourself. It's really not that hard, but you do need to just know what you need to include. So some of the things that want to go in with your standard grading plan application are a picture with the missed utility markings. It's really helpful to outline the limit of disturbance for your project also in the picture, so that they understand there's no utilities interfering where you want to your work. Also, a site plan is important, and it can be a little bit confusing about what to include on a site plan. And because of that, Anne Arundel County has made this nice little check sheet for what should be on a site plan. So visit that link and familiarize yourself with what should be on that site plan. There should be a design drawing. So if you're doing a rain garden or anything else that requires excavation, you're going to do a plan view, which is essentially from the top looking down, and you're going to do a side view so that you can they can see clearly how much excavation is going to be needed in terms of the site. So that's important information to have. This is another example of a design drawing. And you will notice that on the rain garden page, which is one of the links that I gave you, there's a reference to this thing called the rain garden worksheet. So the rain garden worksheet was created to help designers and stewards figure out where a rain garden is best suited and not suited, and also to size it appropriately. There are some issues with some of the formulas in the rain garden worksheet, so Inspections and Permits is not using it anymore, even though it's still on their website. So I wanted to show you that. If you plug in your numbers, if you happen to do a rain garden and you think they're crazy, probably because the permits are, or the formulas are a little bit off. So just wanted to show you that. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. When you go to submit your standard grading plan application, you're going to do it at least 6 weeks before your project is going to be installed. More if you can. So you can submit your application to Inspections and Permits on the second floor, and the address is there. You can drop it off or you can mail it. What's going to happen is that it's going to be logged in, and it really, in order to get logged in, it's going to need the tax account number of the parcel where you're doing your project. Then they're going to send an inspector out to take a look and make sure that what you have in your application is what they find on site. And then it's going to go through a whole bunch of reviews in different people's offices and get all kinds of signatures, and you're going to then get it back. You're going to get a signed copy of your standard grading plan listing any, issues or, any conditions. And you're also going to get assurance that if you comply with the standard grading plan and the site plan, you will be in compliance with any environmental codes or any environmental protection code. So that's really good for you to have that. And then you'll also get the assistance of the inspections and permit staff if you need it. Okay, some of you might be considering a project in what we call the right-of-way. The right-of-way is an area on either side of county infrastructure such as roads, storm drain inlets, swales, things like that. So basically the county maintains the right to repair or renovate any public infrastructure within the county right-of-way. What this means is that it's not always such a great place for a project for two reasons. Number one, you could be interfering with buried utilities or with, for example, the shape of a swale. The swale's there to convey the water, and interfering with that might interfere with the conveyance of that water and cause flooding. So that's number one. Number two, if there are any repairs that need to be done in the right-of-way, the utility or whoever else has to do the repairs is only required to seed and straw after they disrupt the area. So you could have a beautiful bioswale in the right-of-way, and if there were problems with the buried utilities or they needed to do something in that right-of-way, all they would have to do after they completely obliterated your project would be to seed and straw. So for those two reasons, we discourage people from working in the right-of-way. However, there is a lot of good opportunity in the county right-of-way, and so sometimes there are projects there. But anyway, if you are thinking, if you're considering at all a project in the right-of-way, you want to first visit the right-of-way link on this page, and then you want to contact Scott Blizzard. Scott is a great guy over in the right-of-way office, and he can help you understand also if your project truly is in the right-of-way or if it isn't, and then he can help you work through that process. So Scott Blizzard, good guy to know. City of Annapolis. Okay, so here we are with the city. You will see that there's a cheat sheet for the city covering two things. First, stormwater fee credits. When Eric Michelson was here in the fall, he referenced, and I think Rob Fish on a webinar referenced, the credits that are available from the county if you install stormwater projects. The city also has fee credits. So those are explained on the cheat sheet, as are the permits and permissions needed. And you'll recognize the chart. It looks a lot like the cities, like the counties, but it has a little bit less detail. The links aren't there yet, and the contact people aren't there yet. So we're really pushing them to make this cheat sheet a little bit more robust, but I wanted to point you to it and ask for you to read it if you live in the city of Annapolis. Love it. And we hope to have more from the city in a special presentation in May. So that's all I have for you today. I hope that you've enjoyed permits and permissions for projects.